I had numbly swiped left so many times in a row, I almost missed it. I wish I had. My wife Allison had been dead for 2 full years, yet there she was, on Tinder, smiling at me, in a photo I had never seen, looking older than she did when she passed. All of the air went out the room. I skimmed through the rest of her profile. There was no writing, but there are other pictures of my dead wife I had never seen before. One with the Statue of Liberty behind her, even though I knew she had never been to New York City, at least to my knowledge. The profile had the right name, and her location was only 9 miles away. I swiped right and breathed for the first time in nearly 2 minutes. I struggled to sleep for the next 48 hours, ready to message Tinder and tell them someone was impersonating my beloved dead wife on their app and doing some kind of magical Photoshop to put her in pictures that never existed. The match came at 3:33 a.m., lighting up my phone. I was already awake. The match came with a message, just a simple hi. The absolute worst in any situation, let alone this one. I mashed the letters on my phone as hard and as fast as I could.
Who is this? Why are you doing this? And where did you get these pictures of my wife? She died of cervical cancer 2 years ago. You monster.
I had to wait another 24 hours before I got an answer. It was in the middle of the night, again.
Derek, I miss you. I'm sorry for what happened.
That was it. Sorry for what happened. She died of natural causes she in no way could have controlled. And what am I supposed to believe? That my dead wife's spirit decided to inhabit a Tinder profile and hit me up on it? I got another message as these thoughts ran through my head.
Are you home?
What? What the fuck? I got another answer before I can even form my own.
I'm outside.
My blood ran cold. Something rattled in the darkness of my kitchen. And I jumped and readied myself in bed. Then realized it was just ice droppings in the ice maker in the freezer. Another message. Holy shit.
Let me in, please.
Fuck. What? Someone had to be fucking with me. But who would it possibly be? Who would possibly be this cruel and diabolical? There may have been a couple of people who didn't like me at work, but no one who would go this far. Another message. Never mind, no more time for thought, just reading.
I got in.
I heard the front door of my house close, and I tightened up in my bed. I started to write back. Why am I a dumbass? I don't know. Another message rang in before I could shoot mine off.
You were on Tinder too soon, Derry.
A pet name only the two of us use between each other. The logistics of who knew that name flashed through my head as I heard footsteps approach my unlocked bedroom door. Then the footsteps stopped right outside my door. They were accompanied by a fresh message in my inbox.
You were supposed to mourn me, not try to fuck 23-year-olds on Tinder.
Oh my god, I realized right there that it was even following Allison's quirk to impeccably punctuate any kind of message, even if it didn't matter, putting the dashes in a 23-year-old. I spoke, finally.
Allison, I'm sorry. I love you. I miss you. I've been sick to my stomach for 2 years. But I had to move on. I threw up most mornings for almost a year. I was wrecked. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. But I'm finally starting to put it together.
I pleaded into the wood of my bedroom door. My throat went dry. I couldn't speak up anymore, too choked up, just like I had been when I tried to give Allison's eulogy.
I'm so fucking sorry. Everything hurts. Every day. You're my only love. Forever.
I barely got those words out. I couldn't hear or see anything, but I could sense someone out there on the other side of the door. Then I couldn't. I heard the footsteps of someone walking away. I heard my door close again. I checked the app and had a message waiting for me.
Okay. Goodbye, XO.
I felt like my spine tried to climb out of my body. My entire being went numb. I couldn't feel anything other than an odd, disconnected pain. It was her. I walked out to the front door and looked outside. There were no signs of life. I went back to my phone in my bedroom. Allison's profile had been deleted. I felt okay. Till a couple nights ago, after I came back from a date with a 23-year-old I met off of Tinder. I came home tipsy after a few drinks and a makeout session in my car, on a high. I checked the app to see the photo of the girl whose tongue had just been in my mouth, and noticed that I had a new like. I had my account on premium so I could see who it was. It was Allison again, but with the same profile. She was only 1 mile away. I swiped right. Let's see where this goes. I stepped on a dead bird when I walked out my front door to go to work in the morning. I picked up my heel and looked down at the snuffed out robin that had just been underneath my boot. I thought nothing of it until I found another dead bird. This one, a fat, brown little sparrow, deceased at my feet. The sparrow and the robin were just two of what looked like to be dozens of dead birds strewn around the entry and front yard of my home. This couldn't have been an accident. My pet name for my wife was Birdie. I took the lead this time, messaging Allison on Tinder.
Who is this really? And why are you doing this? I've been through enough already.
I had to sweat out the longest day of work of my life without an answer. I was numbly eating my signature dinner of spaghetti carbonara that I could make with just 5 ingredients in just 15 minutes when I got it.
I miss the smell of your carbonara. And it's me. I could tell you something that only I would know.
Allison shot another message before I could reply.
Your secret favorite song is All Too Well by Taylor Swift.
Shit. I had never told another soul that. Another message from Allison before I could think more.
I miss you so much, Derry. You really made my life special. I tried to hang on. You were the last thing I thought of, and it made me happy. I truly felt loved. I could feel your hand holding me strong. Sorry I couldn't hang on.
My throat went dry and tears fell on my phone screen as I read her message a few times. Those last moments we shared at her bed at the hospital, that rhythmic beat of the heart monitor still played in my head. I took my time to think out what to write back to her, now actually happy that she found some digital afterlife way to contact me.
Allison, there's no way to properly write out how grateful I am for the life I was lucky enough to share with you. I miss everything about you. I miss the way I would catch you looking at me with starry eyes when I walked across the room. I miss the way you talk like you're telling someone a secret even when you're not. I miss watching you reflect on sunny hikes. Honestly, I can't write anymore. I'm sure you can feel what I feel. I know that. Sometimes I feel like you're still here, even before this.
Allison replied in just the amount of time it would take someone to read that message twice.
I have been there.
What? Her message came across as eerie and endearing at the same time. She went on.
You know when you set your keys down somewhere and then you can't find them, and then they are somewhere you swear you never put them? Or when you feel like there are 5 shrimp in your stir fry, and then suddenly there are only 4? Have you ever felt warmer all of a sudden when you're crying on a rainy night?
It was at that moment I realized I hadn't turned the lights on in my house, but it was almost nightfall. I sat there in the dark, crying into my congealed spaghetti, wondering if Allison was watching me right there, or if it was just the world's cruelest prank. The buzz of another message nudged me in the dark.
I'll step away. I'm sorry for causing you any grief. Allison, XO.
I let that sit there. It felt right, but also had to do some housekeeping. The thought of Allison lurking over my shoulder and stifling through everything in the house dug a burning hole into the lining of my stomach. I grabbed my computer, went out to my car, and drove into town. I stopped into the parking lot of the nearest grocery store. I took my computer out and started deleting everything I would never want Allison to find on my computer or on my phone. Random old porn I had downloaded, some pictures with a couple of flings I embarked on since she passed. It honestly wasn't that much. I was back home in less than 20 minutes. Everything felt right until I went to open up our bedroom door and found a small pair of red underwear wrapped around the handle. The image of the former owner burned into my mind and turned my entire head red in a flash. I saw the girl in my mind, small, bubbly, very drunk, at the bar I went to with my high school friends. She was there with her friends from high school too. One thing led to another. We went back to my house and we spent the night together. I think she could pick up on the sadness inside of me and tried to cheer me up by leaving her racy underwear on the floor like she forgot them. I threw them somewhere in my closet and forgot about them, honestly. I started to panic. I started to think of a response, but also started to feel like I had downed an entire bottle of NyQuil. My thoughts got slow. My eyelids got heavy. Every muscle in my body became sluggish. I felt drugged. I dropped down hard on the floor, unable to make it to the bed. Lying on the floor, struggling just to stay awake, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. I used the last of my strength to reach into my pocket and get my phone out. I had a message from Allison, which I was able to read on my home screen.
I'm glad I put what I did in your dinner when you weren't looking after what I found when you left guilty. We loved each other, Derry. Why do you do things like this?
My final molecules of waking energy weren't enough for me to take in that message. Then I passed out. I woke up on the floor hours later, still groggy, but alive. The first thing I did when I woke up was to check Tinder. Allison's profile was deleted. I never found out why Allison drugged me, other than just to mess with me or get back at me for the incriminating things she found on my computer, or phone, or in my closet. I kept waiting to get a notification on Tinder that I was liked by Allison. I kept paying for that stupid premium account so I could find out, but it never happened, and months went by. I kept waiting for something strange to happen in our house. It never did. The power went out once because someone hit a power pole on my street. That was it. Life went back to normal. One of the girls, Phoebe, I had casually talked with on Tinder just before Allison's profile annihilated my world. We started hanging out regularly, though always in public or at her place. I held off having her at my place as long as I could. I thought about telling her the situation, and then I scrapped the idea. It was far too crazy. Months had gone by without a peep from Allison, and I was finally comfortable having Phoebe over. I invited her over for dinner. I had talked up my 5-ingredient 15-minute carbonara, and she wanted it. Phoebe and I hadn't slept together yet, and I was getting major vibes that this was going to be the night. So I decided to make everything perfect. and I got to deep cleaning my place. I was cleaning out my coat closet when I found Allison's old MacBook. It was stored above the jacket on a ledge underneath some board games which hadn't been dusted off since when she was sick. Just looking at those games flashed cozy nights on the couch underneath a blanket and sipping drinks through my head. I felt a little warmer than I did before. The MacBook provided a momentary distraction. I sat down on the couch and started going through Allison's files. I knew she saved her favorite photos and videos there. I didn't have much time with Phoebe coming over soon, so I just skimmed through the thousands of photos and videos and fought back tears. It was all going sadly and sentimentally smoothly until I saw a large chunk of bare skin in a swat of photos. Allison's bare skin. I stopped on the photo. I had never seen them before. At least, I don't think I had. Allison was nearly naked and posed seductively but not pornographically. Think old school Playboy photo shoots. They were all in a fancy hotel room I didn't recognize. I saw some cityscape through a window, but couldn't make out which city it might be. What the fuck was this? Who took these? I dove into the photos and examined every one like a skilled detective. I got the biggest clue and relief I ever could have gotten when I got to the last one. It showed Allison naked, sitting on a bed, holding a sign written in cursive that read, "I love you, Derry." Oh, okay. Crisis averted. Back to cleaning the house. This wasn't to say my suspicions wasn't still raised at least a touch. Would throwing that last photo with a sign be a cover your ass move? Just in case, if I found those pictures and it wasn't intended for me? At this point, I should divulge that Allison and I didn't always have the most perfect relationship, and neither of us were pillars of mental stability. Allison grew up in a hard-knock family. Her mom had her at 19, and her dad split very early. She barely knew him. He only came around for occasional life events and lived somewhere in Florida, possibly on a boat. The problem was Allison's extended family. They were all bad news and always lurking around, particularly her sister, Sophia, who was a dark cloud that seemed to always blow in at the worst times with the sketchiest friends and ruin things. Allison also had her fair share of mental issues. Nothing completely crippling or diagnosed, but she always had a mix of numb depression and sporadic anger. She didn't let it hold her back though. She got through college and always had decent jobs, and met and married the upstanding individual that is myself. I had my own fair share of issues myself. On the surface, I had a very clean-cut, middle-class, suburban upbringing. One look underneath the veneer showed a dull darkness of seemingly contagious anger and depression. Our issues tended to help us in some ways. We could lean on each other and understand one another when hard times came around. Then, sometimes we couldn't. The blowout fights were epic. The worst came just 3 months before our wedding. I can't even remember what sparked it, but we ended up screaming at each other all night, and she called off the wedding, even though all of the save the dates were already pinned on all of our loved ones' refrigerators. The deepest regret in my life, which keeps me up at nights, is the cruelest thing I said to her in that fight. I told her she didn't actually mean that much to me. She had just been convenient at the time in my life when I had nothing going on. She was a movie I watched on an airplane and would then forget about it. I didn't mean that at all. I was just so hurt after the things she said to me and calling off the wedding that I thought of the cruelest possible thing I could say at that moment, and it came out of me. The wedding was off for a few days, and we just never told anyone about it. We patched things up, and we were golden by the time we walked down the aisle. This was all running through my head when I was on top of Phoebe in my bed. It was definitely affecting me. I was barely there. I was just kind of going through the motions until it was finished. Phoebe didn't seem to pick up on my troubles. We laid in bed for a while, chatting before she asked to shower. I then embarked on one of my muscle memory rituals. Usually after sex with Allison, she would go and take a shower, and I went to the bathroom in the front of the house to pee, so I wasn't peeing right in front of her. I did this with Phoebe, walking naked through our home and into the guest bathroom. Thinking back now, I thought I did notice something particular in the kitchen, a moisture, the smell of gas. Had I paid closer attention to the kitchen, I would have noticed the burner on, but I didn't. I walked right by and back to the master bedroom. Phoebe asked me if I wanted to shower with her. I did. I slipped into the shower. It was warm, comforting, and beautiful. It must have been about 45 seconds before the water became scalding hot, the boiling water mostly hitting Phoebe's back as she had her head down, the shower nozzle hitting the nape of her neck. I watched her reach back as the scalding water was scorching her, and I watched the soft skin on her back liquefy and slip away as she clawed at her back in a pained frenzy. The water caught my shoulder and I got the same treatment, a searing pain, and the smell of burning flesh right under my nose. I yanked Phoebe out of the shower and wrapped her in a towel. She screamed and heaved into my arms as my eyes combed the bathroom for our assailant. I didn't see anyone, but I saw something writing in the fog of the bathroom mirror. I watched everything. Phoebe thankfully accepted that shower incident as an issue with the water heater. She apparently didn't see Alice's message on the bedroom mirror. She understandably walked away from our relationship after that night though, and I didn't fight to keep her around. I needed a break from anything intense anyway. A few weeks later, I awoke in the middle of the night to the sound of a baby crying. I knew where it was coming from, and I knew why it was there. Allison wanted nothing more than to have a baby, and I wanted to give that to her. We tried shortly after getting married, and it didn't take too long to get pregnant. She knew it was a girl. We painted the guest room pink. We bought girls' baby clothes and a pink crib. We set it up in the guest room even though there were still 6 months to go. We were never happier. Allison miscarried. That's all I'm capable of writing about this situation. We kept trying after that with no success, and it actually led to the discovery of her cervical cancer. The most painful part of me couldn't help but wonder if the cancer came from or had anything to do with the miscarriage. After the diagnosis, we tried to enjoy each other, but we just couldn't. I walked to the closed door of the guest bedroom, and I could hear the baby crying on the other side of it. I gave it a second, wallowing in the pain of it all, before my anger with the world boiled over inside of me, and I threw the door open. My brain was prepared to see an empty room, the way it had been since the miscarriage. Instead, I saw that pink crib in the far corner, and I saw Allison standing there in front of it, her back to me, dressed in her sheer nightgown, the fabric barely clinging to her little frame. It broke my heart to see that she was looking down at nothing in the crib. The sound of the baby crying stopped. It was replaced by Allison's familiar, staggering whimper. I was no longer scared. I was sad. Allison spun around and I saw her face. Her pale green eyes dancing across my vision just for a second. She sent a piercing scream at me. Then she was gone, and I was alone. Worse yet, I felt something walk past me while I was standing there in the door, numb. Was it her? I cleaned out all the baby stuff the next day and donated it. We had hung on to it in hopes that we would have another chance, another try, and that was never going to happen. In a collection of baby stuff was a box of congratulations cards from after we told our family and friends that we were expecting. A card from Allison's cousin, Leisha, triggered my memory. Leisha was a medium, and she had photos of Allison and I already waiting on her working table in her living room that smelled like stale weed. She told me she knew I was coming. Allison hadn't contacted her, but she had felt her presence in the weeks before. Alicia explained to me at some point in the history of Allison's family, they crossed something they shouldn't have, and their blood was infected by a curse that carried all throughout every member of the family. It seemed that even those who weren't as afflicted by the internal demons as others, like Allison, something tragic always happens to them. A fatal car crash, a brain tumor, heart attacks at young ages, cervical cancer. Everyone's dragged down into the darkness, somehow, even if they tried to fight it by succeeding in life. Alicia comforted me by explaining that there was nothing I could do for Allison, and I did the best that I could, giving her love while I was able to. She held my hand explaining all of this. I told Alicia about what's been happening with me and Allison. She took a long hit off a vape after apologizing for doing so. She gave herself some time to connect to whatever she was channeling, and she squeezed my hand, impossibly hard for a woman who looked like she couldn't even be more than 100 pounds, soaking wet. Alicia explained that Allison's family being around when she passed on to the other side was not a good thing. She thinks their dark energy infected her as she passed over, and she may have been infiltrated by a darkness or a demon on the other side, and that darkness was taking over her and pushing her toward me. She also explained that darkness or demon lived in the cancer that killed her and may have been affecting her from the very first spore of it, getting into her brain, creating that anger that hurt our relationship. She insinuated something about the miscarriage, but stopped herself. She went into that ghosts are souls that feel unresolved with their life and the world and linger trying to hang on to it. And demons can act like parasites, using those lingering ghosts to get back into it and negatively affect the living world. This may have been what was going on with Allison. Alicia explained the only way to start keeping the last shreds of Allison's stolen and shredded spirit was to get rid of every single thing I was holding onto that was hers, physically and digitally. I didn't want to do it. She assured me it was the only way. She also said I had to get rid of the tattoo Allison gave me. What? Alicia gave me a mirror and showed me the tiniest little letter A etched in black ink behind my left earlobe. I remember a scab and pain there just after the boiling water incident in the shower. I wrote it off as a part of the scolding and healing process and had never looked behind my ear. She explained, Allison must have given it to me around that time while I was sleeping. Alicia also insisted I move out of the house we lived in together. I agreed and followed through with it, moving in with my parents. I went back to the house and started cleaning out all of Allison's things. I donated as much as I could to charity. The last piece was my wedding ring. I stopped wearing it after a year, but kept it in my nightstand. This was the one recommendation I didn't completely obey. I didn't get rid of it as she suggested. I put it in a safe box at my bank. I just couldn't bear to not have it exist in the world. I experienced some grace at my parents' house. I was there for a week with no disturbance. I finally got some good sleep, got some work done, started eating again. We had a wonderful dinner at home with my parents the first Sunday night after I moved in. 3 full glasses of wine made me feel good and put me in the moment. That wine helped me drift off to sleep and keep me there for quite some time, but not through the entire night. Drinking always made me have to get up and pee in the middle of the night. I was in the bathroom when I heard the sound of music. The music lured me into the dark living room, and I realized it wasn't music. It was Allison's voice coming hushed out of the echo dot in the room. It was so low I couldn't make out what she was saying. I drifted over to the corner of the room where the Alexa was to try and listen. There was a lit candle flickering next to the Alexa, the flame seemingly to flicker with the rhythm of the soft words coming out of the device. I didn't remember the candle being on when we went to bed. I crept closer to Alexa, and I could make out the words coming out of the machine. I heard a fragment of the wedding vows Allison and I read to each other. My emotions swelled in my chest, and in unison the dozens of other candles in the room ignited with strong flames. casting the room in a pale light all around me. For a second, I saw a glimpse of someone standing in front of me, next to the Alexa, but then a swift gust of wind came through and knocked all the candles over, and the image of the person was gone. The candle in front of me fell onto the framed photo of my parents with Allison and I, smiling on our wedding day, standing in the gold field on a summer afternoon. I watched the frame and photo set ablaze with incredible speed. Still frozen, I heard Allison's voice on the Alexa switch from reading to simply crying. Those familiar sobs filled my ears and started to get louder and louder the longer I stood there. The flames started to build all around me, yet I still couldn't move. I heard my mom scream from behind me. Allison's cries got louder on Alexa, as if they were trying to compete with my mother's screeches. My mom was able to yank me out of the room. We were able to get out of the house, and the fire department got there soon enough to save the house with only some moderate fire damage. I went to see Alicia immediately. She was waiting on the front porch of her house, even though it was just daybreak, and I hadn't told her I was coming. Nursing a cup of coffee and a freshly killed bowl of weed, Alicia took me aside and sat me down. She grabbed me by my face and pulled mine closer to hers. I'll share the words she shared with me.
Allison loved you. She would never do any of these terrible things to you, but this is no longer her. That darkness has taken over her spirit. There is still some of her there, and her light deep down inside her, and sometimes it cracks through and sends you some of the sweetness which made you love her, but it will always now only be brief. You can't hang on anymore. You can't keep her in your mind and your heart, but that's the only place she can live for you. Otherwise, this evil spirit will take you down with it, and you'll both be haunted.
I had to let go of that wedding ring. I went back to our house. I remember there was one more thing in addition to the wedding ring of Allison's I hadn't brought myself to purge yet. I also had to get rid of it. Allison always wore the same perfume. I left a bottle in the bathroom, back at the house, because I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. Keeping her scent was one of the things I really didn't want to lose. I would spray it periodically to remember her. I pulled the perfume bottle out of the bathroom cupboard and started to carry it out of the room. I was almost to the door when I tripped and fell. I fell into the counter with the perfume bottle in my hand. The bottle smashed into the edge of the sink and shattered. A jagged edge of the bottle slashed across my hand, ripping open my palm. Some of the liquid of the perfume splashed up into my face, landing in my mouth and stinging my tongue. I straight up inhaled some of the perfume, choked on it, coughed profusely, and squeezed my cut hand, trying to stop the bleeding. Allison's perfume seeped into my body through the cuts in my hand, and the liquid soaked in my mouth. I shook it off. The wound on my hand didn't require stitches, and that awful taste eventually evaporated off of my tongue. I went to the bank and got into my safe deposit box. Only thing in there was my white gold wedding band, staring at me as soon as I slid open the drawer. I scooped it out of the drawer and slipped it onto my ring finger. How loose the ring was on my finger crushed me. Allison was an excellent cook, and not having her around cooking for me and my general depression since she got sick had whittled down the girth of my fingers. The ring would barely even stay on my finger. I intended to take the thing right back off. I didn't. Yet I walked out of the bank with it on. That's when the descent started. I was living in a hotel room while the fire damage at my parents' house was repaired. It was one of those mid-range chain hotels by the airport without the least bit of charm or life and perpetually dim. My room was the top floor at the very end of the hallway, and it became my dark sanctuary from the world. I stopped going to work. I stopped hanging out with my parents. No friends, no apps, just me, sitting in my room and barely turning the lights on. I can hardly even remember what happened during that time. It's like a movie I can only vaguely remember watching. Bits and pieces come to me, and I can see little snippets of the time, but They feel like I'm watching my life, not participating in it. What I do remember is a feeling being locked in a room in the dark with just my thoughts and emotions. And those feelings were painful and destructive. I thought about breaking the window and jumping out. I thought about drowning myself in the bathroom tub or throwing the TV plug into the bathroom tub while I was in it. I thought about my steak knife that came with my room service one night and what I could do with it. My parents and Alicia rescued me. They came to my door one night and forced me out into the open world. Alicia took a photo to show me how terrible I looked. Sunken dark eyes, ashen skin, my hair coated with grease. I looked like a person who had been living on the street instead of a Holiday Inn Express. But then came the worst part. I had only been in the room for a little over 48 hours. It was like my disorientation was in warp drive. I had seemed to age 10 years in a day. Whatever came into me through that perfume had carried me to hell. My parents were major skeptics and were freaked out about Alicia contacting them because she was worried about me. However, they were completely understanding and open-minded about the dark power of everything that had happened with Allison, so they let Alicia into the room with me, alone. Alicia examined me with a horrified look on her face the entire time. I was just starting to come to, and the dire nature of the faces and sounds she was making were throwing me into a panic. Alicia was going to do an exorcism. The power of the darkness was too deep inside of me to do anything else. Going and throwing my wedding ring into the river wasn't going to be enough at this point. I thought that was going to mean just lighting some candles and burning some sage, holding some crosses, and making some pleas to the Holy Spirit. Alicia quickly informed me that was not the case. I watched as Alicia pulled out a syringe, a vial of clear liquid, and a little rubber hose, a setup that looked like it would be for shooting heroin. She told me the liquid was holy water as she pulled out a blindfold. I didn't believe in God, so how was this holy water going to work? She explained the darkness could be affected by something that simply believes in being clean, being holy, being a light, and not a dark. Holy water was the best she could do for that, even though she didn't believe in God either. Alicia blindfolded me and tied me to the bed. I didn't know it was coming when she slipped that syringe into my arm. I got the biggest head rush of my life when she dropped the plunger down, and I felt myself melting into the soft mattress of the bed. I suddenly couldn't move. Everything was dark, but I felt like I was riding on a space mountain, cutting through the darkness at a breakneck speed. Then it all started to slow, and a familiar voice drilled into the back of my head. It was Allison, the old Allison. Derry? Her soft voice, kind again, floored me. I couldn't answer before she spoke into me again. What happened? I took in a deep breath that felt like I inhaled the entire universe into my suddenly heavy chest. I started communicating back to Allison's spirit in the void. You've been torturing me. You've ruined my life. You have to stop. You have to let me go. But please, don't let go of me. It couldn't hurt more to do what I had to do. I was surprised I was strong enough to start forming the statements in my head that I did. I won't forget you, but I have to let you go, Birdie. I will never forget you, but I'll let go of my hold on you, and you have to too. She didn't respond. Please, Birdie, I have to go on. I'm falling apart. That's not me who is torturing you. I know your pain. I love you. My clear head allowed me to feel something I don't think I would have felt without Leisha's assistance. I could feel that darkness seeping into Allison, like it was filling her blood. I felt like it was getting injected into her like that holy water into me when she took those pregnant pauses. I can feel the rage building. I can feel it sucking me into myself. I started to lose my cool. She stopped placing words into my mind, and instead I fell into just a feeling of her pulling me deeper into the hole I was in. I started to feel like I couldn't fight it anymore. Then the voice came into my head, but it was lower, colder, darker this time. Just stay with me. It was a dark whisper in my ear, and I wanted to give in to it. I could just let go. It would be easy. It would be nice to stay with her. I felt her nails dig into me, and something switched inside of me. The pain, the sting of it. It was familiar, and it woke me up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to go. Allison stopped talking again. Instead, she just dug those nails deeper and deeper into me. But I fought it. I pushed myself away, out into the space, into nothing. I apologized one more time without words, and then I felt something float away. I felt Allison's rage turn into sadness as we parted ways, and I felt control start to come back to my body. I could feel it was her. This was not the family darkness, not what took over her, not that demon. It was just her, and she was saying goodbye now. Goodbye, Derry. I love you. I'm sorry. All of those feelings returned to my body, just as I absorbed hearing what I always needed to hear. I was ready to go back. I could feel myself crossing back, being into the plain hotel room by the airport. I could hear Alicia's voice calling me back. I didn't say anything, but I reached my arms out as far as I could, and for the slightest, softest of moments, I felt my hand brush against Allison's, feeling the rough scrape of the diamond on her engagement ring press into the side of my hand. I woke up on the bed, Alicia's face pressed up against mine. Relief was washed over her face.
How do you feel?
She asked, plenty of weary still on her face. I felt the best I had in a really long time. I felt like I had truly exorcised a demon.
Holy water could really do all of that?
I asked Alicia instead of answering her question.
No, that was ketamine, but I just didn't want to freak you out.
Alicia explained. I don't think anything could have freaked me out at that moment. I was ready to move on with my life for the first time in years. I'm writing this a few years after it all happened. It took me a long time to really absorb and remember it all, and to be able to properly retell it. Things have returned to normal. I have a girlfriend, not from Tinder. I have a new house. I have a life. All I have left of Allison's are the memories. Well, I do have one physical item I did keep that I didn't tell Alicia that I did. I never got the little A tattoo Allison left behind my earlobe removed. Every once in a while, I'll wake up in the middle of the night with it itching, and I'll wonder if it's Allison returning or just sending me a little hello. But then it goes away and I go back to sleep. I almost never see it, but I always know it's there. And that's perfect.
This is your body, darkness. And remember, darkness is only a switch away.